Well, welcome to the podcast. Who asked for this? This is the first episode of a conversation that me and Siciliana enjoy having off the record. We've been in the new tech VR industry for over a decade now. Each of us will share our own origin stories, but I think we're kind of at a good point now. 10 years in, we have a whole slew of new headsets coming out. And yet it still kind of feels like we're in the same space we were 10 years ago of, is this going to be a thing? Is these platforms stable? Have we hit success yet? And now it's actually, the stakes are a little bit higher because now the cost is higher for these devices significantly.
You're talking about the Apple Vision Pro.
Apple Vision Pro, Galaxy is also, in the couple thousands now, especially if you want it with controllers. Even though the Oculus Quest 3 devices have been getting a little bit more cheaper, the games are like $50 now, $30. You're still spending money.
The consumers still have to do a lot of research too. If you look on the forums, they're trying to make sense of what their kids are asking them for. Some of these, I've seen questions around which games are compatible and then find out, oh, I have to buy all these new games again. The Oculus doesn't work with a PlayStation and it's not called Oculus anymore. And people getting shouted down in the comments because they called it Oculus. Someone's just trying to get gifts for their children and they run into all of this.
Yeah. It's a very, very messy market. It's very unclear. It's who are we building for? What exactly is the value? I feel like consumers are asking a lot of questions about it. It's so funny because I was actually just watching Judge Judy the other day. And there was an episode, one of the plaintiffs was suing the defendant for Oculus that I guess the guy had taken and hadn't returned to her. They were a former couple. Judy goes, what is this? What is an Oculus? The guy's like, oh, it's a virtual reality headset. She was like, who plays with this? What is this? It's like a toy? She asked her niece, and the niece is like, oh, it's a popular device. A lot of people play with it. And then Judge Judy asked everybody on the stand. The stenographer's like, yeah, my kid who's 12 years old has one, which is interesting because it's supposed to be for 13 and older. And then she asked the bailiff, and the bailiff said, I don't. And then she asked the audience, anybody here have an Oculus? And 6 out of the 30 people raised their hands, and she was like, oh, okay, I guess this is a thing.
Well, how long ago was that?
It could be a year or 2 years ago,
well,
maybe.
They're calling it Oculus, then that would be before, when did Meta change their names?
Well, I feel like people were still calling it Oculus even after Meta changed.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, we could have a whole show about what a disaster changing the name is, let alone letting people know what it is. And I think what was compelling to me about having these conversations was the chance to reflect and look back on where we thought we would be versus how confusing and sort of the little engine that maybe could. The little train is still trying to get up the hill.
Yeah.
And
that's a question I'd love to examine too. Why are we still here? That's part of this reflection. Why are we still here? Are we still here? What do we believe in anymore? And is it the same as 10 years ago? And if we're not, then what are we moving to, and why did that change? Because in my head, obviously, if you love VR and you believe in VR, it doesn't matter whether or not it's massively adopted. But a lot of people seem to really care that it gets mass adoption. And if it's not, that it's not validated. And it's why? If we know that it works and we enjoy it individually and it has these strong use cases and verticals and powerful impact and learning and all that, why do we need it to be massively adopted today? Yeah, who is that for?
The investors. I mean, I think the runway, the way that I understand entrepreneurship and investing is people have time horizons, right? And they want a certain trajectory, even though past performance doesn't predict future performance. The timelines are very short. The time horizons for investing, let's say, a small amount, $100,000, $500,000, or even millions of dollars. How long do you have for that to grow, and what kind of gains are you looking for? People want quick gains. They need that dopamine, not just the dopamine that you get from making a wise investment, but the prestige that you get from saying, oh, you closed a deal, or, oh, you made, so-and-so got $5 million investment. But
who's these people, by the way? Define that when you say that. People want
investors want a return on their investment. So if when you're looking at
So you're talking
where am I going to get rich,
Yeah.
right? When
Yeah.
I started in VR, I came from a filmmaking background, and I tried my first experience. It was the North Face demo where I was in the canyon somewhere, and I thought I was going to fall off a canyon. And I thought this was so compelling. I felt definitely like all in immediately from that rush of feeling like I was there. But there was also that sense of it being a new gold rush, right? We saw the rise of the internet and the dot-com boom and then the mobile boom. And so everyone thought this was the next wave of technology, but it shouldn't take, even though there is a long tail and there's the trough of disillusionment, there's all these visualizations of what the trajectory of this technology looks like and how it should be mass adoption. But we needed to have gotten there like 5 years ago, and people still don't know what it is. And so I think the challenge has been, oh, it's a metaverse. Oh, it's a gaming console. Oh, it's an empathy machine. And so the communication around it, when it's really something you have to try to believe, it's a hard sell to get people to put it on their face. And when they do, the onboarding alone for a new consumer, I think is a lot to ask. It's a lot of onboarding. Fundamentally, as a creator, people are looking for a way to sustain themselves and make a living, and
Right.
it can't, and not just surviving. And so tech for so long was the beacon for people to advance themselves and to get into a different income bracket, frankly, right? And have more opportunity and have access to that level of wealth that the internet was unlocking for a lot of people. And it's just, who's making an exit in VR?
We just talked about investors, and now we're talking about creators, right? So this is like potentially the creator goal is they see there's this new opportunity being afforded for them to change their wealth status by investing early. And this begs the question for me, is like, who promised the return? Like, I think when we go into these spaces, we don't know if there's going to be a return of investment or not, right? We're not building the platform, it's these companies. And so I do see sometimes, and I remember early on the day, I feel like the first wave of people starting to like get disillusioned with VR was in 2020, I think it was during COVID, where people were finally feeling the financial pinch for more of the reasons. There were layoffs happening, all that with the macroeconomic squeeze or whatever. And I remember Clubhouse was an outlet of frustration for like
Clubhouse. What happened to Clubhouse?
All these XR people coming in and like all venting and group venting about like, we're supposed to have this by now, why is this company not doing this? And there were some entrepreneurs who felt miffed or felt like their ideas were taken, that were kind of like raising the horns of like boycott Meta, whatever, that kind of stuff. And I feel like there was an air there, the first wave. And I'm starting to see it happen to this new generation. There's new people that have come in post that, that got excited, starting with
Quest 3.
The Quest 3, yes. And they were very optimistic, excited, and trying to create opportunities or build their careers off of this platform because they see it going in a positive direction. And now I'm starting to hear them getting delusioned and frustrated, and, it hasn't panned out. Obviously, from my angle, when I came into this, I didn't know if VR was going to be successful or not. I feel like I came in to the back door. I didn't have big plans for me to make a huge return. I knew I just really loved VR. I loved playing with it. I loved building for it. I didn't know what my career was going to look like, but I really loved making games. As a career, if I was thinking about what I want to do with my life, this was the only thing that was sustaining me, my interest at the time, just because I was getting challenged in a lot of new directions. I was getting to build things. I was getting to learn new technology. I was creating experiences and trying to think about how this impacts human. I feel like it just kind of hit so many verticals that my brain just felt very engaged emotionally.
Super stimulating. Yeah. I think success is defined by each individual in this space. I mean, but then there's the success of, mass adoption. Like most people, I would say, success is getting that multi-million-dollar deal, right? It's like success is sustaining your business and having paying clients that you can then grow your business, hire more people. Nobody's talking about how AI is going to increase jobs. Everyone's talking about how AI is going to decrease jobs. Look at, and so the question fundamentally is not just who asked for this, but it is also, is VR dead, right? There's always, in the last 10 years, like VR is dead. When I first tried VR, I said, VR is dead. They tried it in the 90s, so we were going to raves, trying on this bulky headset with the glove and getting motion sick and feeling like you were stuck inside of, the Dire Straits' Money for Nothing music video from 1985, right? That's what 3D animated graphics in VR was all about, was go look at that video. So that's not a sustainable way to interact and engage. And certainly the frame rate was making everybody motion sick. So if I'm looking at success, people want unicorns, right?
Yeah.
And if the standard Silicon Valley success story is an exit, a multi-million-dollar exit, or an IPO, right? So, one thing that I have found particularly compelling is I feel that even though I've learned so much and I have this deep appreciation for the way Facebook at the time embraced VR early, I think that as an investor, I would have made more money if I had just bought Facebook stock, $1,000 of Facebook stock 10 years ago. And that's what I think of when at a certain, stage in life, that's success, right?
Yeah.
Like my nest egg. How much do I have for my retirement? Like those kinds of questions that most beginners, or when I say beginners, I mean young people just starting out in the market, graduating from college, they're not thinking about their nest egg. They're thinking about, how am I going to pay my student loans? So something that's going to give them a return so they can sustain a life in the Bay Area, one of the most expensive places on the planet, pay their bills and their student loans and the high prices of inflation that we see everyone dealing with. So to me, VR seems a little bit antiquated at this stage. Like I just don't see it as this, oh, I'm in the future. Like I put on that headset. I don't feel like I'm in the future. I feel like I'm in a road stop that was going to be a big train. Like when they built the trains, the town, if they built a train station, the town would grow. But they built a train station and it didn't really go to anywhere. And so now the tumbleweeds are coming through. And the reason why I say that is because of the news about how Meta is laying off X% of their Reality Labs team. So in a general sense, success is always seen in terms of growth. And although in many times of constriction and limited resources, people will say, well, to grow, you have to survive. And so I think right now some people or some folks in the VR space are in survival mode because they're looking for new users and they have to show growth. They have to see that hockey stick to prove themselves to the investor class, or to even be able to grow jobs.
Right.
When we first talked about having these conversations, it was interesting how we were getting frustrated with this prototype as product, right? It's just like, okay, now we're learning how to rapid prototype, which is awesome, but where are the real products that are getting to people to use? And that's where the question of scale comes in, right? Like, okay, I'm using this forward technology and I feel like I'm in the future, but if no one's accessing it, no one's seeing what I'm doing, unless you have the resources to go to an international festival, because I from my view, most of the prestigious festivals are going out of the country. There's no like US leading, oh, look at what we've done in VR, because there's no funding for it through the arts, right? So in Europe, I think they have a much better approach to funding those kinds of projects where it's a sustainable living for an artist. But more and more artists and creators have had to bridge technology with art in a way that almost seems like it's less sustainable, right? Like, how are they supposed to support themselves as an artist if people don't have these headsets and aren't paying or aren't coming back? So that's why we need the scale. And because in our whole foundation is just growth. Right? Rapid growth.
Let's go into who are we and what are we doing here? So I can actually, do you want to go first? Do you want to
You go first.
Okay. So everyone, thanks for listening so far. So this is as you can see, this is why I was so excited to have this podcast, because I feel like we could go on just basically reflecting on the industry and making these observations about VR and where we're at today, and not even just VR, but also just new technology in general. Because I feel like when you enjoy XR, you're going to enjoy AI, you're going to enjoy the drone stuff, you're going to enjoy the AI driving cars. Like, they all kind of overlap. And now, thanks to the Galaxy XR, you're seeing AI and XR meet in the middle. And I personally am enjoying wearables in that department as well. So a little bit about me. I've been a longtime veteran for XR as well. I think I jumped into the XR game probably in 2015 when I was in grad school, and I was exploring how we could, revolutionize training in the workplace, and specifically how do we measure unconscious bias and look at be able to have simulations and stuff like that. And so I saw VR just felt like the natural right fit to explore here for a research topic. And so I kind of got into prototyping and building some experiences that way. I was taking an interaction design course, so was learning.
And you were based in London at that time, right?
Yes, I was based in London. I'm born and raised San Jose, California. So one of the, I think you're also a native Silicon Valley as well.
Bay Area, Oakland.
Bay Area. And so born and raised there, been surrounded by that. I never really thought I would enjoy a life of being in front of a computer. So I did, most of my undergrad degree was in political science, and I really loved social impact stuff. I started my career in the public sector, looking at ways that we could have a social impact on people and people having more control of their quality of life. That's something that I really, really was a theme strongly in what I wanted to do for my career, is to help bring those opportunities to different places. My dad is from Haiti, my mom is from Eritrea, so as a first generation immigrant or second generation, I did not take for granted the opportunities that I had for my life to control that, and I wanted to dedicate my life to doing that for others. Fast forward, I became a developer. I was part of Oculus Launchpad in 2017.
And that's where we met.
Yes, my app got picked up for funding, which I was shocked about because I was doing anti-bias training.
Right. And so I think, just for a minute, to say that at that time that VR was having this, I guess some people, there's different waves, right? There's the 60s, and then there was the 90s wave. And so this particular wave of immersive technology definitely had a sense of hype and promise around making it more equitable for women and minorities who aren't the stereotypical kind of technologists that you would see in the Valley.
Right.
And so that was the shimmer of and promise of VR. Wasn't just that it was going to help us see the world in a new way and experience things that we might not otherwise get to do in a way that VR allows, but that it would open the playing field up so that more people had access.
Exactly. So then I started working at Meta I've been there for, it was almost 6 years, and then I joined Google and I worked on the XR team, which was very much really cool. When working at Meta, I think I came in during the year where they first launched a Quest standalone. They're about to do that. So I got to work on a lot of the really cool products as a product manager for them, and the trajectory of Quest 1, Quest 2, Quest 3, and the Meta Quest Pro, and then going to Google, getting to, witness the birth of the Galaxy XR. I found, to me, when I tried it for the first time, I was like, oh, this is what VR is supposed to be. The marriage between AI and XR really, for me, made it feel like a very complete solution, especially when it solved for a lot of the interaction issues. I feel like when you're navigating, again, we can go into the product later, but when you're navigating VR, there's a lot of different new ways, mental models for how you interact with it. And I felt like AI seemed to have solved a lot of those problems. And I think Galaxy XR introduces what that could be. Also keeping my thumb down in terms of how people are talking about it, the community's reaction to XR and what is success, how companies are making decisions like Apple and all that in terms of what they're putting out, why they're still putting things out if it's not quote unquote deemed successful yet, at least from society's perspective or investors' perspective. And then I'm just hearing a lot of chatter from so many different directions, and I kind of want to bring us down, because I think we're in this new space where, money is tight now for most of the world. The cost of these quote unquote prototypes or unfinished products that we're starting to see being launched, and even though it's been 10 years, are getting larger and larger. And people are still trying to ask themselves, where do I fit in? Should I still be a creator? Should I invest in this? Should I quit now? Is the time? I think there's just so many more questions around XR today than there are answers. There's no clear sense of what is success here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Siciliana Trevino.
Yes. Yes, well, so I'm really excited to have Siciliana on the show because she is a great thinker, and I feel like every time we have conversations about tech and VR and all of that, she's like giving philosophical angles and spiritual angles, and like I feel like her takes on this is like so contextually stimulating. So yeah, I think we've met. I think we met. I think it was for when Mozilla had an XR studio for women and XR and AI.
Yes.
I think you also had a program, I remember, and I think it was.
It was with AR/VR Women and Allies, and
Yeah.
it was the Futurist in Residence program. We received. I had applied for a grant from California Creative Institute, and they funded the purchase of a Magic Leap headset on its launch so that we could distribute it to 5 recipients. You were one, and
Yeah.
to test it and see. And so, a little bit about me. So before there was Horizon Worlds, there was Facebook Spaces as a beta, and it was like a 4 person social experience within Facebook that was so cool. I totally miss it, and I guess it was just really hard to run on PC
Yeah.
VR.
Yeah.
So it was really unstable, but we had a lot of fun, and we did have a show with you, and I think you had just won your Oculus launch pad.
Right.
So
So
yeah,
yeah, Siciliana's been podcasting. She's been doing all this for like decade, like the whole
10 years,
years.
a good
In
10
all
years.
their forms, in VR, outside of VR, and then you have an
Yeah.
amazing Oculus Launchpad podcast.
I tried VR for the first time in 2015 and had the one of the first VR meetups in downtown Berkeley in the city of Berkeley for VR. So it was called Off Planet, and I had been running those and then joined AR VR Women and Allies on the leadership team and had run several programs with grant funding. Two of the things that I'm really most proud of are my first 360 music video that I did with Gabby Lala. This is for
Yeah.
the Gear VR, which was for the Samsung mobile headset One in
Hmm.
Ear. And this is artwork by Bud Snow with Snow Angel. We raised $10,000 on Kickstarter to get that going because I had to buy a PC. I had to buy a Samsung phone, and I didn't know the first thing about making games or making VR apps. And so that was my first one. And then I made a first of its kind interactive podcast action adventure game for Bose AR frames. That was in 2018, 2019. And so these were the Bose RA frames. It was a game, War of the Worlds. So the Martians are here for our memes. No visual component at that time, but basically it's just the same thing. I think, well, I'll call it the same thing as like the meta glasses because they have the speakers here and they have gestural control as well.
Wait, what brand is this?
Bose.
Bose had.
Bose had frames. Yeah, they had a whole platform. It was just mostly music and calls that you could take,
Wow.
but you also had gesture control. So you had tap to answer calls. You could do input control with this. So if you're playing a game, you could tap. But it's all 360 audio.
Oh
And so
wow.
War of the Worlds was
Way before the Ray-Bans?
way before 2017, 2018, and then they discontinued them because I think it was just too much capital expense for something that was so experimental. And that's the thing.
So shocking.
You have to release products, they have to sell, they have to move, and if they're not moving the needle, let's say for Bose, their primary products are stereo speakers, right? Headphones, noise canceling headphones. If market conditions are putting pressure on their primary products, it makes it harder for them to invest in newer, unproven technologies. And so when you run into the, economic headwinds, your favorite things can go away. War of the Worlds had over 10,000 installs with no advertising. So it was very promising. People wanted it and had really good word of mouth. But then they deprecated the SDK. And this is where the creators get into trouble. We were one of 5 national teams chosen to create a game for the platform. So it was like this hackathon competition where teams got together to create a prototype in a weekend, and then they had 1 month to produce the actual app. And at first, it was just to be on the Google Play Store for Android. But then in the middle of the competition, they told us they wanted it for Apple also. And so if you've ever published an app on the Apple Store, you can't just hackathon your way to an Apple Store app. Like, you have lots of testing. There's a lot of intricate requirements for a device like this, because this is heads up, hands free. And so after Pokemon and all the augmented reality, people looking at their phones with their open camera, stepping into traffic, you had to have these new warning pop-ups on your onboarding. So you finish everything and you're like, okay, I'm ready to upload it. And then they're like, oh no, you're an augmented reality app. We're just realizing that. So you need to have a whole new like warning into your app. And you're like, there's so many things to keep track of that by the time we were ready to release our app, it was deprecated and they were telling us to take it down. So I was on test flight, super excited, about to launch my first Apple Store apps. And I couldn't, because it had only not even been a year since we started. So we were still technically in the competition. And that's where the uncertainty, when you're living in a high expense area, you've got to have multiple revenue streams if you are going to make your career in this space work. And I think over the 10 years, the people that are hanging on are people that have extensive business experience prior to coming to VR, or they've had extreme good luck, just getting into the right network and having, it's like the opportunity and preparation meeting where it's the right idea, the right platform. But if you're off just a little bit, all this time and energy that you invest and it just gets away from you and there's no way to actually monetize, takes a toll. And so you really have to have more than one revenue stream to be in this space over at least for the last 10 years, as I have found. So I also do want to say I was a product manager at Alcove VR, and Alcove is the award-winning VR app produced by AARP, which is American Association of Retired Persons. So it was multi-generational VR for families to get together. At the height of COVID, Alcove had just launched. So we were seeing tremendous connection with families in VR, multi-generational grandparents connecting with their children, and hearing really heartfelt stories of how it was changing the way that they were communicating. So there is this power and this intoxication, I feel like, that I still have with VR. But as far as seeing it as a viable way to get rich, this is not financial advice, but you might be better off just looking and running the numbers if you just invest $10,000 into your, a high performing fund in 10 years, 20 years, even though it's like, yeah, like in the 10 years that I've learned VR and everything, I don't have a company, I don't have an exit, but I do have this voice saying, wow, you should have spent $10,000 on buying Facebook stock 10 years ago, or even Apple or Google or Microsoft or Nvidia.
That's the risk with taking these kinds of bets, especially when you're talking about new platforms, new technology in general. Those are always high risk bets because there is no precedent for it, and so there's no security, right? These are bets. We just happen to believe in these bets, whether or not is for return of investment for money or to get rich. It's just because that's what Silicon Valley is. Whenever there's a story that gets told, or a narrative like, oh, it's a new platform, get in early. There's the same thing with Apple. There's a new platform, get in early, get in early. And so I think now
the early adoption, right? The story of the early adopter.
The story of the early adoption, that is like, I invested in Bitcoin when it was $6, and now
there you go. Yes. Okay. But
but there's to say there's that. And so I think a lot of times we're looking at these new platform opportunities as like, that's an opportunity for me to get in early because I can finally be that story. And there's a danger to that, but there's not a danger.
It's human nature. It's human nature to want to get rich quick. And the danger is that if you're an emotional investor, if you don't know yourself, you get lost very easily in the shimmering lights of, oh, this is the gold rush, right? It's just like, it's definitely goes back to the 1849, in San Francisco's gold rush. And we have that, history and that environment where innovation meets capital and sets the world on fire, and
And I think that's the point that I feel like that when we are making these bets into experimental technology or new technology, which doesn't have a proven market yet, that's something we have to keep in mind as we're investing. And, don't like putting your whole life onto a new experiment is a risk. Even the companies themselves are not putting their whole company, well, Meta, changing their name to Meta, I think try to spiritually embody that they're throwing their whole weight onto this. But I think even if you look at Google and Apple, whatever, this is just like a side thing. Even Reality Labs was a
it's
side
niche for them.
Yes, they're not investing 100%. They're investing a lot. Meta probably by far more than many, but I think we have to also look at it in that way. What are their 90% of their investments, and then what are they taking risk on? And then if we adopt that within our own portfolios, I think we could be safer in making those bets as well. And hope, yeah, I don't know.
Well, hope is not a strategy.
Yeah.
As a lot of people say. I mean, I think you hear that all over the place. And there's this sense of like, oh, we're hoping. That's what I feel like after this. Just like everyone's still hoping that, oh, AI is the answer to XR.
If you're hoping with your whole life stock into it, that's right. Definitely not a strategy. But if you're strategizing and you put, let's say you have 80% in a safe bet, and then you have a 20% here, and you're like, oh, I hope this, that's a hope.
More reasonable, right.
Yeah.
That is the strategy, right? That is like, this is my hope strategy where I secure my foundation with something that's proven. And then I've got allocated 10% to looking at new technologies. That's a smart way to look at, rounding out like, what your whole perspective is going to be. But to even have this conversation about where am I allocating my resources is something that I learned being in tech, right? I grew up in Berkeley. My mom is from Mexico City, and first generation here, and feeling like I have something to prove to my ancestors, to my family who struggled and sacrificed to have the kind of opportunities that they never had. Right. And truly living that American dream of living better than the generation before you, which is fundamentally how I understand the American dream, right? As living your potential, thriving in your area of your passions, and building a life for you and your family that you can be proud of, and that's respectable, and that's honorable, and that is serving community. Technology is just such a powerful way to connect with people and make that happen. But then there's that dream, and then there's the market forces and the reality of the economics of it having to math, right? The math has to math. Looking back on my career as early on as a filmmaker, standing behind a camera and looking through the lens was the first thing that gave me a sense of agency. Like, it was the first time I felt like, oh, I have a perspective. There's something in looking at the world through a smaller lens that allows me to be calm, allows me to be focused, allows me to think about how I see the world. And when I didn't think, I had a right to have any kind of opinion about certain things, or who was I to, hold a camera or think that I could be a storyteller, filmmaker with these devices. So film cameras were technology for me early on, not really realizing it. And then having tried my first VR experience, feeling like, wow, I've never made a game, but being inspired by all the people that were pushing this forward, it's given me a voice in a way that I have a better sense of like the kinds of decisions I need to make in order to carve out that dream, right? Where it's not just hope, or I see this on TV, why don't I have it in my hands? Like this sort of sense of immediate gratification that the world runs on. But getting back to just having gone through that journey over the last 10 years, I finally feel like I have a sense of like, oh, what is all this about? It's about how do we create a life for ourselves using these tools, not just to empower other people, but to live a healthy, sustainable life, right? But tech isn't the space that it used to be 10 years ago. It's not the shining beacon on a hill where you're going to, there's just layoffs everywhere. So how do you leverage this, these dreams and this need to make a sustainable living, and thinking, oh, tech is really the traditional way, or had been the traditional way to get out of poverty, to get out of these like strapped cash situations. And the old adage of like, oh, just learn to code isn't really the solution anymore, given where we see AI going either.
Brought up a lot of interesting like models of thinking. I think when people are exploring like tech, especially when you're coming from a second generation, background.
It's different for us. It's a little bit different for us because we have the weight of the expectation of not just excellence, but of like forging a new path that our parents didn't have before.
Yeah. When you say we have a responsibility to, in a way, I'm probably paraphrasing what you're saying or changing the words, but like, live the dreams that our ancestors would desire for us. So how do you define meeting that definition today? Is it high salary? Is it getting paid a lot of money? Is it winning a lot of money? What is that? What is it exactly for you?
I think it's unlocking what VR unlocked for me was the same way that film opened this new world of sense of agency, right? That we don't always control what happens to us, but we do control how we respond to that, right? That's our sense of autonomy. And so the promise is finding the joy in what you want to do, right? I got to ask the question, what do I want to do? Do I want to study film? Do I want to study theater? Do I want to study dance? Those are questions that my grandmother never got to consider, or you see the talents of your family, and because they didn't have the opportunity, which is what the US promises, right, has been the promise of the land of opportunity. Mm-hmm. So is taking advantage of those opportunities that my parents couldn't take care of. Many of us in this space don't have the backup plan, right? Like, and so I think success is financial independence and living debt free, and the luxury of being able to decide what you want to do with your own time. When I say the dream, what does that look like? It looks like not having my time solely dictated by the needs of my family, so, or even just being able to decide when to have or if to have a larger family, like those kinds of things. So it goes deep.
Okay, financial dependence is how you define then financial independence, being able to decide what to do with your time. And what was the third one?
Sure, debt free. Yeah. But I just mean high interest credit card debt. Like no high interest credit card debt.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so that I feel like, yeah,
you will go into when you are an early adopter with no real business plan.
Yeah. See, and this is where we can get into the real weeds of this, right? So I want to like kind of map this back to the points that you were making earlier, like with VR as an industry. It sounds like your position is that you were hoping it would generate large returns for you, and that has not come through. And in so doing, this was your route to achieving this financial independence, this being able to be debt free and control your time. This was kind of where you put your eggs in the basket. Is that accurate? What you're saying?
I think, yeah, in this space I've definitely had a lot of big failures, and what it's taught me is how to be smarter with my resource allocation. And that's just for me. This is my own personal experience. I've had a lot of successes and a lot of wins, but I don't know anyone who hasn't sort of described their experience in this space as not being like on some kind of roller coaster. So I just think that VR as a success is, I don't have the numbers of installs and stuff, but I can say I remember, looking at the day after Christmas is always great, right? You see the spike of users and then it just falls off a cliff. And I don't know any business that can survive that way over a long period of time and grow and like add jobs and do the kinds of things that move the needle. I've had a lot of success. I've had certain economic failures. I don't look at VR as a viable way to build a business, but my background's not in business strategy, right? And I have a different timeline than someone 10, 20 years younger than me. So it's more that the lessons I've learned from being in the VR space have gotten me to a place where I can achieve the kinds of economic independence that I've been seeking, even though it's not through a VR business.
I think a lot of people are feeling the way you feel. I think there's a lot of people, not even just in VR, just in America.
Yeah.
You know, that American dream, right? That is what you essentially described, where you can come here and you have access to all these types of opportunities to get yourself to a financial position where you have control of your freedom, more freedom, control of your time, and you know, you're kind of abundant. Obviously, I come from immigrant parents. And if I were to describe their definition of what success looks like in America, it definitely looks different from mine. So I think, if anything, I'm a failure for my parents in terms of success.
No,
But I think I should ask, though, now their wildest dreams of what could be, what that means. But if, you know, this is why I think it's good to unpack, because there's different definitions for success, especially for different generations, right? I feel like my dad's American dream, being Haitian and coming to San Francisco and working at manufacturing, they had achieved it at one point. It's like being able to make a living, have a job that was reliable, and provide for a family and have kids, and like he was a very big family man and community guy. Like he would pay for tickets for my cousins from Haiti to come to California to visit, from New York, from Boston. So they would all be there, and they're all my age. So he'd take us to Disneyland, he'd take us to amusement parks, like he'd take us on the trips. My mom would
Disneyland, that's the American dream.
Yeah.
Taking your kids. I mean, now especially, it's like $250 per person or something crazy.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
see all these YouTube videos about people going into debt because they're charging all their Disney vacations.
Yeah, so to him, that was his idea of success. That was the American dream for him. For me, that's obviously, I don't want kids, but I feel like I'm more in alignment with what your definition is. I want to be financially independent. I want to be able to control my time and you know, be debt free. And I feel like for the first time, I do feel like I've kind of gotten there, but I feel like how I've gotten here was more so I've had to make a lot of crazy turns, and I could not have done it in America. I achieved my American dream by moving to Britain. Ironically. I feel like now America is where you go to make money, but you're not going to keep that money if you stay in America. You got to leave and go to another country where you have healthcare covered, you have social services, you have public transportation, where it's, you know, like I told you earlier.
That's a dream. Yeah, that's a dream too. Yeah, being able to afford healthcare.
That, like, to not even have to worry about that has been a game changer for me. And then also too, the cost of living is a little bit more affordable. I can afford to do things. I feel like America doesn't afford that anymore. And we're going from XR. I think that these two are very much related, because like I said, I think the pain of having invested a lot, because a lot of people did see XR with all the hype and around this being the next big thing. To be that story of the American dream, where I put my bet here, I got here early, and now I can live financially independent and abundant because I got to the right place at the right time, just like all my other...
out. Yeah, we cashed out. We IPO'd, and we had stock early. And where's that? Where's that company? Because that was supposed to be Magic Leap.
Yeah.
Right?
And that was even before we hit this like new layoff world that we're in, where tech is now suffering. Tech prior to 2022, prior to COVID, was never in a space where you had to worry about job security. It was the mecca for security in general, financial security. The VR market in of itself is still very, very, very niche. So success in a very niche market. Yes, you might have a micro success, but no one
in the
has
scale of things. You still haven't been. You're not resonating.
You're not mainstream.
I mean, for me personally, like what's interesting is that I loved VR for the sense of escape that it gave me, and same with film. I sense of escape, but as I got older and really started to build the life that I wanted, and a lot of that was actually through learning how to develop apps in VR. I don't want to be in VR anymore because I have a dog and my dog's not in VR. And if, you know, I'm one of those dog owners that's just like, oh, I never knew that instead of getting a VR, maybe I just needed a dog, you know, to like not want to escape.
Oh, yeah.
So,
dude, that's real. See, that's the thing. That's the bias. That's the confirmation or bias we're looking for. And I think there's something to be said about going into these spaces, one, for money, which I do think oftentimes if you're going into something with the hope of a return investment financially, it biases, you know, because especially if we're putting so much on it, it's easier to make the wrong call with VR. And I think a lot of people did that. I think a lot of people did that. Yeah. which is
I
fair.
know the numbers. I mean,
Yeah.
I know the numbers of how much people have lost, and
Yes.
even what I've lost by just even, yeah.
Right. You know, these are things that we don't have full control over. And on top of it, like I said, there's no precedent for it. So it's like this is a risk. We're hoping. We're looking more at the opportunity, the excitement over it, without really thinking like, is this a safe bet? What are the real risks here? Without really doing a real risk analysis. We're kind of looking like with
And
the,
that's, yeah, it's
know?
rose-colored glasses, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what is great about VR, is that it does that for you, is that it gives you this sort of potential and promise of like, oh, this is going to be huge. And when I tried VR, I literally thought like in 2 or 3 years, everyone was going to be walking around with glasses, and not just for VR, but augmented reality. But it just didn't prove out. And I mean, earlier this year was AWE, and the energy was great, and seeing people was great, and the announcements were awesome. But and it's, you really need that sort of those water cooler moments where you interact with people and you run into people that you don't get in VR. Talking to some of the younger people, like there were a lot of students there, and one of them sat next to me and he just said, he's like, nobody wants to wear glasses that long. Like, you're going to get eye fatigue. We're already talking about how people are overloaded and overstimulated and the dopamine rush. And I get like, they can bring the volume up for people, right? Like they have like a focus, the glasses have a
Yeah, it's like a
focus,
focused audio wherever you're looking at
so you
the
don't hear
art.
crowds and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, those are accessibility, I think, features that are necessary for certain things, but I don't think, again, how does that scale? Like I don't think that these companies are in the business of providing accessibility features, because that's just something that they would already be doing, or like accessibility is great. And I think that's important, but I don't see it as like these companies genuinely thinking that's what's going to grow their business. It's just a side benefit that they can say is a feature, but it's not really going to move the needle in terms of growth.
Yeah, exactly. So when you were mentioning like why do they put this in? Why was this like considered a main selling point, especially if they're not in the business of accessibility, which I think is fair. Is I think you're pulling on a thread that's a little bit loose. Like there probably isn't that much. And this team needed to have a win with this feature. Maybe it was because maybe they had a
To
patent
reach their
on it.
marks.
It's a business opportunity. Yeah, exactly.
They had
And
to
so
have a win for that quarter and
exactly.
be like, we made this. And
But not even for the quarter, for the company, because if you think about it, a lot of these things are patent protected. So
sure.
maybe,
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
so it's a differentiating product value that they can try and sell, and no other product could probably have that. So that's why they're looking at it from their perspective. This is why I love the topic of who asked for this, because
Business asked for it. The business case, right? The business cases versus the consumer need.
Yes, it had all the consumers, like you and me, and people were like, why is that big? Should I care about that? And then you have accessibility being like, thank you so much. I definitely need it for XYZ.
Well, they're in business to increase the stock price. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think the larger goal of any of these companies is to try to continue being the front runner of the title of being big tech, continue being the leader of innovation, continue to being a company that's successful, that investors believe in will still be successful over time. Because at the end of the day, like we've seen with all companies, there's a shelf life. At some point, they stop innovating, quote unquote, like the IBMs or the Ciscos, and they're no longer the sexy companies to invest in, which means they're operating with less money to build new things with. And this is where we kind of get into like, okay, so when we talk about this hype machine, when we talk about adoption, this is, I think, very clearly Meta's goal is how do we get billions of users using VR? We haven't.
Mobile.
What is it?
Mobile. They get them on a mobile Horizon. Like you had building in Horizon, and then all of a sudden it's like we're making it for mobile because everybody has to still be mobile first. And when I started 10 years ago, there was it's exciting to see a future where you're like, what's after these mobile devices? I've been hearing that glasses are going to take over the mobile phone for 10 years. And then even Mark Zuckerberg said everyone's going to be wearing smart glasses in 2030. And if you don't, you're not going to be like, you're going to be at a cognitive disadvantage.
Let's take this next session to talk about
Okay. Okay.
it irks me. I hate this idea of this is what's next and it's going to take over and this is going to replace that. Like, where did that come from? And I want to explore that. And when did we care about what's going to take over, right? Like, I think, of course, we had the Wi-Fi, the dot-com boom, internet.
Social media.
During that, before that time, nobody was like, social media is going to be the next big thing, so we need to get in it. No, it just naturally happened. And then when it's the big thing, it was the big thing. Like, we didn't need to anticipate it. Who cares?
When influencing became a thing, the age of influencers, I think. I'll tell you, I knew we were in trouble when Magic Leap was at its height, around the hype, and it was still just like you couldn't even get a demo. And I was on some career panel for high school students, and I said, show of hands, who here has a Magic Leap or has heard of Magic Leap? They were like, what's that? And I was like, these kids don't know what it is. It's a $3,000 headset. If they don't know what it is now, they're not going to care about it later. Like, it's like when Riz took the nation by storm, right? Or the world by storm. All the kids are saying 6'7". All the kids are saying charisma. They say Riz.
Mm-hmm.
And now I see Riz being set in a Hallmark Christmas show. You know, that's pervasive. That's scale. That's word of mouth. Those are just the kids not using any technology. I mean, they're using TikTok, but I'm just saying the culture gets made on the playground too, right? And if those kids, they're all doing Roblox, they all know what Roblox is. They don't know what Magic Leap is. They might know what Gorilla Tag is, but that's the Kleenex of VR, right? Gorilla Tag is like a game before it's VR, I think.
Yeah. So again, going back to that question, then where did this idea come from that someone says this is what we're going to be doing in 5 years? Why do you think that? For me, when I hear we're all going to be wearing smart glasses in 2030, why is that? Who's who?
Because we're futurists, Clorama.
No.
We're futurists. I'm a futurist. I'm a
futurist, and I still don't understand why that's the future. I want to ground that in actual practicalities. Is it like, when someone says something's going to happen in 2030, you don't know that. And if it's one thing if like we are on the trajectory today where we're seeing hundreds of thousands of users using this solution every single day. So then it's like, because it's already on this trajectory of growth by 2030.
Proof.
It's gonna, yes,
yeah,
there's an
you want
estimate.
proof.
But
Yeah.
if you're going to tell me that we're going to all be doing this in 2030, but there's nothing to demonstrate that, why are we all believing it? And three, to me, it's a FOMO. We're using fear, like don't miss out because everyone's gonna be doing this. So you better put your money in now. So it's like who is he talking to? Because it's not talking to me. I'm someone who's been using Meta Ray-Bans for 3 years, and I love that thing. I like to your point of your friend saying I wouldn't wear all day, even though I was wearing it all day. None of my friends were wearing it all day. I knew I was unique. I knew I specifically liked it. It specifically fit my unique needs, which were very privileged. I am able to talk on the phone and take photos and give voice commands to it hand-free because I'm walking my English bulldog and I have a latte on the other hand and I'm going to be walking around the block. This is not a common problem for most of the world, for 1 billion people. Because maybe a lot of people could just have their partner holding the drinks and taking the phone call.
Or they're doing manual labor and they need these visual glasses, like for Amazon, right? They're coming out with glasses to help their drivers.
If you're talking about B2B, that's where I feel like VR thrives right now. It's actually solving business solutions. This is what computers did. This is what every single new technology did in its origins, was always to solve a business problem, to help scale internally, to be able to achieve a goal more effectively, right? VR was a military training tool because you can get people to imagine and be in environments where, geographic location and distance was a barrier to them understanding the terrain and how to move around these, it's you have to do experiential training for these type of fields, like flight simulator. So VR has a very strong product market fit for training use cases and education use cases, and we're already seeing a lot of those case studies showing.
But you don't even need. Yeah, but you don't really still need a headset. You could still do a lot with just a super wide screen and even...
No, see, that's where...
The cave. No, the cave. You don't think the cave is good enough?
I think you could, if you're, so this is where we get into VR versus location-based experiences, right? There is a market for both for sure, but location-based means you got to bring people to that location. Whereas VR means you can have people in that office in Idaho and that office in Florida and that office in Connecticut. Like, we were talking about this in theory, right? The practice of being able to train people globally.
Oh, no, I think training is number one. Yeah, training and exercise, I think.
With VR.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using VR. The holidays is a little bit trickier, but I'm pretty much almost daily getting exercise in VR. So it's not like I give up on it or I don't think it has promise. I just think that if you're looking to sustain yourself as a creator, or if you're looking as from the lens of a creator versus an entrepreneur or enterprise, but from a creator standpoint, you have to have other revenue streams, like building 3D worlds and doing all of that, because also it's a very small world and it seems very, I don't want to say like it's cliquish, but it's like tribal, like everybody has their sort of like group and they do their activities, and we could get in a whole conversation around networks and how those network effects work also. But I would just say that I still super love VR. I just think that it's dead.
No, but
so now it's a zombie. It's gonna rise from the grave.
You think the corporate definition of VR, where we scale to 1 billion consumer users, is dead? Because there's a lot of definitions.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yes,
I don't. Yeah, like because.
So did the Galaxy XR not give you any hope then?
No, because
actually thought, what is your thoughts on?
It gives me hope in the sense, it gives me hope for people that love headsets, right? Like, and that love to like create conversations around the technology and the features and what it can do. But I think when I say it's dead, it's like I'm not looking for a return on my investment when I get a headset. Like I'm like, do I want to get a Louis Vuitton bag or do I want to get a headset? Because actually I'll get more use in some ways out of the Louis Vuitton bag every day than I would out of a Vision Pro.
Okay. As an enthusiast, you wouldn't. I mean, I'm different. I would say the opposite because I'm not
you're not into bags. You're not a bag lady.
Yeah, exactly. I do. I mean, I haven't been in VR actually recently for a while, but I have been craving to go in. I feel like I go into fatigue states because I was in it for almost every day for work, and then now I'm not working, and my brain just feels tired. Like it just doesn't want to get stimulated to that level. So now I'm like just doing dumb stuff.
There you go.
Now that.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like.
But it goes through that in waves. Like obviously over the 10 years, there's been days where I'm in it every single day, all day, and then there's been months where I'm like, okay, I need a break, and then I go, and then I'm hungry for it again back. And that's, so it kind of goes up and down.
But you're not like that with your phone. You're always on your phone
because there's utility on my phone. That's the thing.
Yeah, because it makes calls.
That I make up earlier because your the comment about the AR glasses and like nobody's gonna want to wear it all day. Okay, but people who have poor vision.
Wear glasses all the time, but they don't have information and pop-ups, and they don't have notifications. Because the issue is, I'm gonna get, and this is what happens in VR. I'm gonna get a notification 3 times. I'm gonna get it on my phone. I'm in VR. I'm gonna get a notification in the game, and then I'm gonna get a notification when I go to my VR home. So it's like you're gonna get fatigue from all of the ways that these glasses are messaging you. And now it's not like
also Fitbit is going to tell you got a message.
Right. And you've got the Fitbit, right. So and that's your Apple Watch, because the Meta glasses, they only work with Meta stuff. Nobody's developing for the glasses yet, right? They haven't really opened their SDK.
I think Android opened the SDK for glasses, and I thought
for Meta.
Yeah, the Meta.
You can, but you can't publish anything. Right? I mean,
nobody has the glasses yet. Yeah.
Nobody's publishing, like as a creator, I can't make something for those glasses yet. So, I mean,
I think for Android XR, the whole point of Android XR is that when you build for the XR platform, it'll work across all
all the devices.
With that said, I'm pretty sure it's not gonna. We don't know what the hardware specs are going to be, so therefore you can't optimize knowingly unless you're part of the developer Partners, yeah. The point that I wanted to make, the larger point that I wanted to land on is I do feel like it's missing a utility layer, and that is why it's not mass consumed. And most people are not enthusiasts. Most people are not nerds. We are a niche group where we will be happy to buy it, excited, even if it's just to put it on our shelf as part of our library of hardware. Some people, that's enough of a return investment to be able to say, I got the headset and I got it first, and whatever. That's my.
But that's the FOMO. That's the bag culture that I'm talking about. It's the
Yes,
marketing.
exactly.
It's all
Yes.
being so that you can identify as it's a part of your identity,
Yes.
but it's not actually funding your life, your style. Don't go into debt buying a Vision Pro. You're going to pay 29% interest on something that's like outdated in a year or two. Right?
But if you're buying it because you like to watch Disney Plus movies in that environment, then it might be that's the return that you get, right? Because it's like, I want to be able to watch it in this headset. I'm not going to be able to go to Disneyland this year, and I have a family that I just want to escape from and watch my movies in peace.
I love the Vision Pro. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are ways where you can like it's subject to what your definition of return is, right? For me personally, when I was buying these headsets, the return of investment was, I'm a developer, I'm going to build for something. And so whenever I bought like my Alienware laptop, this is back in 2018, when I bought my Rift, in my mind I told myself, with my credit card, I'm going to pay this back by building something for somebody else. And I was able to pay myself back. That was the return of investment for me, was this was going to fund my developer freelance career. And so that was how I defined it. And I didn't have a lucrative.
But you got funding. But you got funding for your
That was a surprise.
app.
Yeah. Sometimes, you plant seeds and you don't know what's going to grow. And it's always the thing that most surprises. Like, I did not think I was going to get like, what? This is crazy. I took 2 weeks off of work to focus on building this app. Again, that's not a sacrifice most people would make. They're going to take their 2 weeks off of work and go on holiday and go on vacation. For me, I get to learn how to build for the Rift. I get to say, like, I built an app for Oculus. That to me was my return.
That's really cool, though.
Yeah.
No, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. I was
That's
like,
very empowering.
Thank you. Yeah. I didn't think I was going to win. That to me was, that was my own internal ego, like knowing that I built for this headset, like I could do it. That was the win for me.
Return
so
enough.
Yeah. That was the return. So when that money came, it was just like icing on the cake. And now it's like, okay, where do I invest it? And I invested it in starting a company, which actually failed. And we didn't fail because it didn't get enough customers. Actually, we failed by having too much customers, not enough investment. And I got hired at Meta, and I was like, I would rather just do that, because I learned in the process. I was getting burned out from the business side of things, just like you said earlier. Yeah. I'm not a business person either. I just like building things. I'm a nerd. So when that stuff started growing and I had to start talking and speaking to salespeople and other companies, and it was just like, it was like taking something from my soul. But fast forward 5 years, and I'm here in London, and there's a threat of layoffs at Meta, and my visa is tied to my job. That made me nervous. I don't want to have to move back to the States. And thankfully, they have something called the Global Talent Visa. And if you've showed you've done innovative work, had a company that has experienced some modicum of success or whatever, or you've been recognized in your field, you can get this visa that untethers you from a job, and you can live in the UK.
It's like their entrepreneur visa.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
And
with a path to citizenship, which is very attractive.
And that work that I did was what landed me that visa 5 years later. So while it didn't give me success in the like material sense, in terms of I became a Forbes 50 under 50,
30 under 30. Yeah. But you had the return was the opportunities that it allowed, the doors that it opened for you. That's real.
Yeah. Again, it was without expectation of that. Every time I've explored something, it was like, can I do this? And let me see what I've learned in this process. And no, I don't like being a startup CEO. I was like, I don't like this world. It's very much hype oriented. You have to embellish, and they won't call it lying. They'll say embellish the truth. You have to pretend to, you have to over promise.
You have to oversell.
And oversell, because that's the way that you're going to get the money that you need to be able to keep going. And then know how to make excuses for when you underdeliver, or know how to frame it in a way that doesn't sound like that doesn't make the person say, I want my money back, which I feel like is what a lot of the tech industry is doing right now. We're seeing 10 years of the VR headset failing at the definition of exactly what you just said, scaling to 1 billion users, not to businesses, not to specific verticals, but for regular consumers, that has not reached the definition of success for mass consumption. And yet they keep putting out more headsets and they keep getting more money. What is the narrative we're telling? The narrative is, oh, the hardware is the barrier, or it's because it doesn't have this feature yet, or it's because it doesn't have this killer use case yet, or it doesn't have, we keep...
The moving the goalposts.
Yes. Oh, it's a 10-year journey, not a 5-year journey. It's the standalone. So that's the issue. It was because it was tethered. That's why it wasn't
chicken and the egg.
And I feel like that's what we're seeing now in real time at the AAA scale, or, the grand scale.
We lost it I just remember when the crypto and the NFT hype, and it's just like, where's VR and all of this, and like, where are NFTs now? Where's the Bored Ape Yacht Club parties? Like, where are they? Like, it's just a flash in the pan. I'm not saying, there are, of course, success stories. For every success story, there's someone who, lost everything.
Yeah.
Like what was that guy, the kid they sent to prison who was with the big crypto.
Oh, I remember he was in the Caribbean or something.
He was in the Cayman Islands or something.
Crypto King?
Because the gold rush brings out like a lot of greedy people too. So
money brings out a lot of different faces. It brings out, it brings out innocent people who are like, look, I'm trying to change my life and I'm told this is the right way. It brings out people who are like, this is the next opportunity for me to like use fear to like get whatever by any means necessary.
Sometimes people have good intentions and then they get in over their head.
They listen to, the hype.
Or they get lots of investment and start spending it on parties and, box seats and things like that, and then don't really have a return to show anyone and then go to jail for fraud. So River Studios. But at the end of the day, for me, I guess, what I'm seeing is it's a lot of it's a lot of hype, it's a lot of FOMO, but the real FOMO is the bank account. That is the numbers that you're going to need. Like, everyone should know their number, right? Of what's going to be comfortable living for them, right? And not get caught up so much in the glitz of it to the point, the object lust. We used to call this in retail. We were always really jealous of the way that tech, was taking over everyone's attention, and so people were like, what is this? It's this object lust. It's the way that they're able to market these devices that you can't live without them. And they become, we can't live without our phones. How do we turn that into like, we can't live without our dinner plates. We can't live without our fine china. We can't live without our brand clothes. All that to say that I think what I found is the flex isn't in, I got the latest headset. The flex is, I didn't go into debt to buy the latest headset, and that money is earning 10%. Or something. Like, to me, that is it's what you don't see, right? It's what you haven't spent. But I'll leave it there.
That is a very valid thing, especially for people who are very realistically going to this as investment. That's what a lot of this stuff is. That I think you're speaking to a very large community of people who will relate to that very well. I think maybe I'm more of an anomaly in the sense that for me, I literally just came into it because I really enjoy the technology. I really enjoy VR. Like you said, we both saw the power in it. It's a very powerful thing. Regardless if it makes it to mass consumption or not, I still believe it's powerful. It's one of those things where it's like, it is or it isn't, period.
You love it. Yeah.
Yes. Now, does the world validate that? It's less of a concern for me. I think it'll naturally, organically get there on their own, but it's not going to get there the way that these companies need it to get there. It's not going to get there the way investors need it to get there, because they're
for sure
about money and it's not thinking about the actual technology itself and the impact of it itself.
Power.
Where it's actually the power lies in it, and they're not creating in it. The people are creating in it, and those developers, like Beat Saber, nobody knew that was going to take over the world. Nobody knew we needed that, and it's still one of the most successful games today. Gorilla Tag, same thing. These are not utilities in the way that will appeal to 1 billion users, but it gets close because a lot of people like the game still. they're doing something right. They've hit that right thing. But for the rest of the world, when they're trying to, now pivot to spatial computing, so maybe that's going to get everybody else into it. The reason why computers have been so successful today is because they offer a real value, right? I can type and my documents and
I
print
can
it out.
stay connected to everybody though. It's like it's the phone component, right? It was
It's
the
evolved a
marriage.
social
We
connection. Yeah.
got we got hooked on the iPod, right? And that was all music. People were sharing it. And so we were hooked on these devices through the music. And then we had our mobile phones and we were texting and stuff. But when you put the phone with the music and the camera, that it's just, yeah.
Yeah,
And
because
then
people
social
are
media and then social media. Yeah. So it
exactly.
was just like the perfect storm. And
Well, it naturally evolved that way, right? It wasn't like all of it happened and somebody said, social media is going to take over. There was a foundational utility of I can play my music, and I already have a foundational utility of a phone. So we're carrying a lots of things.
we had the BlackBerry in our pocket, we had the iPod, then we had a mobile phone that was our own mobile phone, finally, for those folks that were early adopters back then, because that's what you were when you were walking around with a phone.
And we're text messaging. That was a huge functional value of us being able to text message. But, the beeper thing was also becoming very lucrative. It was such a strong utility that we were technically only using it for phone numbers. Remember at one point? And then we started using it for texting. We changed the numbers. We created our own cultural language with the phone numbers to be able to text words to you. Like, what was the words that we would say to each other? Like,
Words we're not going to say now.
yeah. But,
Just basic stuff.
yeah, and so then it's like we created that
You
solution.
up?
Yeah, it was an unintended way of using the beeper that then showed, oh, we can enable texting on iPhones or Blackberries.
Blackberries were what all the executive, like you were, like that was your flex, the
Yeah,
Blackberry, because you were an executive or you were somebody
right.
important. If you had the little thing, you had to do the keypad, the actual keypad. So there were like mobile phones, Blackberries, Palm Pilots.
Remember the rotary phones where you turn it around? Didn't each number have a letter to it? So like you can say call 1-800-pizza, and then
Yes,
you would know to use 8 is pizza, or like it would have
because
this.
the early phone numbers were letters. Like they were
Yeah,
just like there was like X24. They were so small.
yeah,
They didn't need to be that long.
yeah. So like each. Okay. Anyways, long story
Okay,
short.
we're having a lot of fun talking. And
Yeah,
then they
yeah,
would send smoke signals before that. So
yeah. So
carrier pigeons.
this is already a proven success feature. It's a proven value. This is what people already use. And now you've solved the problem of being able to, for me not to have to carry 4 or 5, 6 different devices. So it's more economical for me to have it on one device. And I can bring it around with me everywhere. And it's a lot easier. You made the UI of being able to text instead of having to burn smoke and like flap it at a certain thing. Like now I could just press the letters because they have a keyboard on it.
And
it's
we're
just
mobile. We're not tethered to the wall.
When
Yeah.
I can
I
bring it
mean,
with me to I can go to Starbucks and text or whatever, wherever we're going. Now we're offering new technology where you can't type in. You can't send messages to other people. We've stripped all the utility out. I haven't tried it yet, but here's what I know. I loved the Meta Ray-Bans because I could voice command. I could say things and I could use my hands freely to do whatever I need. For me, it was the value of multitasking. It's the same thing when I'm in Galaxy XR and I could say, hey, can you rearrange my windows? Hey, can you type this? And I could just speak it and it does it for me. I use my hands for more important things or multitasking. When I think about gesture input and I have to do sign language and whatever, I think I have to put my coffee down. I have to make sure Nietzsche's there. And then I have to make sure it doesn't look weird if someone's looking at me. But I don't see that as a high value feature for me. It's cool. It's very cool as a technology.
yeah, but
input
it's no
in general.
utility wise. It's not long term. It doesn't really. I don't think it adds value. Like there was this feature where they were writing on their leg or
Yeah,
something. Like you were like,
yeah.
oh, you can write out your message on your. Why do I want to? Like, when am I? When do I ever need to do that? Like, because I can't just text it. Or I can't. Like
Totally.
again, like it's a technology looking for a use case in that way, not for always, but I'm just saying that like it's not compelling enough to me. I hear what you're saying, but I think what that does is it changes human behavior into being a little bit entitled. Like I think it will get you used to a certain kind of way of like, oh, if when I just say this it happens.
Well, whether or not it's entitled, that's a different thing. For me, it's ease of use.
Yes, but You in the habit of having things at your command is my point.
There's a space, there's a use case for it, right? Like when my hands are busy, I can still get the value because now I can talk. I think there's use cases for it. It solves a problem within a certain scenario. Whether or not I'm going to be like, I'm not using a keyboard anymore because I want to speak. That's a different level of entitlement that I don't think is like a real
threat
to the humanity. But if anything, to me, it's more evolution because that's how we talk to each other. This is like when you have assistants, you tell each other things. It's natural.
It's a natural interface. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a natural interface. It's like, how do we get the tech to be more human?
And you get all the way you're hurting your hands too. Like,
right.
you get like carpal tunnel, like this big old phone. Look at this big old phone. Like my wrist, my thumb. I've got some weird thing on my thumb now. Got like
and you know how many people in VR are getting tired of using the controllers. I mean, it's good for physical like fitness, but it's bad for longevity. It's not natural. Not primarily natural.
Yeah, the weight of the headset for being on for hours, as you know, working in the headset, it's not for everybody.
With that said, though, we thought the same thing about computers. I never thought I would be sitting in front of my computer 12 hours a day and enjoy it. Now I enjoy it. We thought the same. No one's going to be on their phones all day. Now we can't get people.
I knew first. I mean, as soon as I got my iPhone, I was like, it's over. I was like, I'm not human anymore. I definitely felt like this weird sense. I was like, what is happening to me? I keep picking up this thing. And it was like, yeah, once you could put Facebook on my phone, I was like, what? I was like, oh no.
And you'd be surprised what people would be doing if you give them value. They will contort and form. They will put themselves into debt going to Disneyland. It doesn't matter that Disneyland is in that location. You have to fly there. You have to get a $1,000 hotel that, you have to wait in lines for. People will do it if the value is high enough. That's why I never bought into the idea of if it's the hardware, if we make it convenient, then it will scale. No, it will scale naturally. And people will figure out their own solutions.
When it's what they need. Yeah.
When it's what they want.
Yeah.
But we haven't gotten that in the XR headset yet. We're not solving people's problems. We're trying to find a solution for a technology that we built that we need to find a lucrative area to put it.
I think there's a lot there, and it's just with AI, how many people really need to be trained if all those people are going to be fired and replaced by AI. I think there's a lot to be said for investing in the custodial arts, custodial and plumbing and electrical things that require manual inputs to get done. But anyway.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of machines like automation take over in general, and it hasn't really taken away jobs. If anything, we've also had a lot more opportunities for like more gig work. Like, we thought the same with the Ubers, and it's going to take away the taxis. No, taxis are now just more expensive and have a different area. Airbnbs, we thought that's going to take over. I mean, right now it's killing a lot of society, like social, cultural, society things, but it hasn't replaced hotels. Hotels are still high value. It just kind of upsets the value.
Still reading books.
Yeah.
We're still listening to records.
Yeah.
Thank God.
We just expanded the portfolio of ways to be able to access how we want to do things, where and when. We have more flexibility now in terms of choice and freedom with these new technologies that come in. And while they have disrupted some things and changed, they've also brought more opportunity to create wealth. Some people might be investing in Airbnb and are generating their wealth that way, whereas that wasn't an avenue before. So I feel like it has made it so middle class can find more ways to create economic opportunities.
Well, people have to hustle more than they ever have. So I think it can be a little bit of a trade-off. But
it's a trade-off for sure. But they are making money. It is a choice. You're never forced to do Airbnbs. It creates another avenue. So I do feel like AI is similar to that. I don't think it's going to take away jobs. Maybe some jobs will be affected, of course, but I do think it's going to more shift how we work and what roles are available and what roles are needed or not. It might be that more physical stuff becomes more important, but then I don't know, they're working on robots too, so maybe
that's for the next show.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this was a very good conversation. I don't know if we answered, I think we kind of answered the question, like, who is this for, in terms of looking at it from the creator perspective, the business perspective, the investor perspective, and the consumers. And I think it's very clear we landed on it's definitely not for regular people yet, and that it has a long way to go for that, and maybe it's not the right direction for a lot of these big tech companies to try and make. Maybe that is the dead end, but who it's for is still open, and these industries like air flying, military, the training, education, that I think you and I both still agree has such
there's a lot of viability, but there really hasn't been a unicorn since Oculus. right? That's gotten sold for billions of dollars. I mean, the first company was Oculus for what was it, 2.5, $2 billion
Yeah.
in 2012.
But again, that's
2012.
if we define success by exiting, right? Because technically that was Mark Zuckerberg's desire to buy a $2 billion company that had no market yet. It was definitely like his decision alone, rather than like a signal to like whether or
Well,
not.
yeah, I'm classifying success as a exit or IPO, which is like from the perspective of someone looking to invest in a new technology to see the kind of gains that people saw in the .com. It's a very clear line, like a very clear financial baseline for success of, yeah, $1 billion company selling a company for $1 billion. Now, for me personally, yeah, that like I don't need to become a billionaire, but multimillionaire would be a good place to land. And uh, I'd be curious who has become a multimillionaire in building a VR company, VR, not AI, not AR, and maybe it's within, but again, it's a very small group of people. It's much smaller than the kind of opportunities.
Only games I think have done that, like the Gorilla Tag and the Beat Saber.
Within was bought by Meta too, so you're looking at purchases, not IPOs. So now creative success is different, but I think like success has to. I mean, for me, like you can have successes, but you want some level of sustainability around that success. If you want to define success by awareness or through influence or through reach of audiences or something like that, there's plenty to be had there. But I think for me, success has really got to be based in a way that I can pay my bills without like being stressed, without like having to leverage debt, without having, with just some nice capital,
Yeah.
liquid, whole.
For me, success would be seeing it having a positive impact on humanity, which I also don't think it has successfully got there yet. I want to see kids and being able to use it to access education in areas where they can't physically walk to schools. I want to see doctors or healthcare people being able to practice surgeries in ways that they couldn't do in real life because they didn't have access to. So I want to see a growth of healthcare practitioners who are now able to get to the field because this technology has made it more accessible to, do all those surgeries and embody that training. I want to see more access to education, more integration to real world skills sets. And I think once I see that, I feel like VR has become successful, not just in playing games or
having a meaningful impact. It reminds me of the Meaningful XR conference that I went to earlier this year. And it was really, that's the thing that's exciting, is seeing, in the education space and in universities and seeing different research programs with students and how they're investigating all these different ways that it can have, virtual reality can have meaningful impacts for sure. Yeah. And in that regard, I think there's so many examples of success.
There's so many small examples of success.
Like Trip VR would be one,
Yeah.
like right off the top of my head, as a platform that makes people's lives better through meditation and through creative visualizations that they have in the app. So
Yeah, there's a lot of
we could talk about that more.
Yeah, a lot of micro successes in this, but I want to see it happen more macro. And with that said, we have seen that, to compare that, like WhatsApp to me has been very successful in terms of you go to all these different countries, they're developing countries, and a lot of people have been able to create businesses on WhatsApp where they wouldn't have been able to in real life. So you see, it's been an economic lifter for a lot of these that are considered, lacking Wi-Fi or lacking
Access.
Infrastructure.
Yeah.
They're able to create economic opportunities off Instagram, off TikTok, off social media platforms, and build a life for themselves in ways that wasn't accessible before. And I want to see that happen for XR. I think it will definitely get there. I'm optimistic in terms of and I'm optimistic that huger companies will exit in the near term, billions of dollars for VR.
Really?
Unfortunately, No, I'm
Oh.
asking myself, am I optimistic?
Oh, I was just like,
I
I'm not very optimistic about that, but
Yeah. I don't think that, like you said, I don't think the way that these companies are going in terms of tailoring it to the consumer and kind of like not really being developer centric, I don't think we'll see that anytime soon. I'm not optimistic in that direction. But I do see a lot of people who are building businesses in smaller forms, small businesses, and doing and delivering these trainings or creating this content that will impact. I think there's this one, what is that, Kai XR?
Kai
That
XR.
does, yeah, where she brings these VR headsets to classrooms and they go on field trips for in low income elementary schools. Like, I think that concept, when I see a company like that exiting a billion, or
That's what I'm, yeah,
that
yeah.
would be, or this even just being normalized in schools, that would be success to me, I think, for sure.
And with that, I'm looking forward to more conversations, and I can't wait to dive into some of these headlines and really try to dig into why things are made and who they're for, and how we can, like you said, just understand where we can course correct and how we may need to course correct to make it a space that has the kind of opportunities that were promised by the American dream.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, anyone who's joined us.
And we have a lot more to say, and we're happy to have you join us on this journey of exploration and reflection.
We'd love to hear your guys' thoughts as well. Like, what does success look like for you in this industry? What angle did you come out at it at? Like, how has it met or not met your expectations? Would love to hear more
Yeah,
conversation.
do you think everyone's going to be wearing the AI glasses in 2030? Do you think like we're going to be at a cognitive disadvantage if we don't have these glasses? I mean, if I were selling glasses, I would probably tell that to people, well, if you don't have these glasses, people are going to think you're stupid. You know, like, there goes that. Like, what if I get the glasses and I'm still dumb? You know, like, what do I do? I need another pair of glasses.
All right. Well, thank you
Thanks.
so much again. Thank you for joining me, Siciliana.